Have you ever felt that fear in the pit of your stomach? That one that you get when you fall from the highest roller coaster and you have great desperation for wanting to scream something, but the words do not come out. Ideas are going 100 miles per hour, you don't even know where to start. You have so much to say, but you can't say anything because there is a knot the size of a fist that is planted right there in your throat. Well, that was the same fear I felt every time I thought about taking this step I'm taking. To tell you without masks, without filters, some of the mountains I have had to climb. I was born and raised in a fairly humble family environment in Caracas, Venezuela. My mom was a lawyer with honors, and my dad was an acting teacher, a great actor, both activists. They were involved in politics and social work. They believed and bet on change. As life happens, my mom left my side when I was little, and things got more complicated. As I mentioned in the previous episode, I grew up in somewhat unstable and difficult circumstances, but I was in love with my therapy. Dancing, that was my escape. The dance embraced me. It made me feel like I could be me. I felt freedom. When I danced, I forgot. My dad didn't have enough money to pay for a dance academy, so my only recourse was to dream and to get my tribe of dance fans. My little dance group. It was called Dreams of Youth. The truth is, I really enjoyed it a lot. At the age of 15, thanks to the economic support that my aunt Marlene gave me, I managed to enroll in a dance academy to train me at a more professional level. The academy was called Dance Studio Maisulmina. That is how, little by little, I was polishing my talents and growing my career. Over time, I began to make myself known internationally as a dancer. It was a beautiful stage, beautiful. However, while my career was expanding, an historical crisis began to destroy my country. The situation was desperate, which led me to make a decision that would change the course of my life completely. To emigrate. I immigrated to USA. I packed my dreams, my illusions, and my talents into suitcases and left in search of new possibilities and opportunities. I needed to support my mom, help my dad and my little brother. Also, as I had promised my dad, I wanted to study the possibility of getting them out of the country because things in Venezuela were going to shit. The protests in the streets did not stop. Protesting students were being killed. A living example of how the hunger for power and control can change the lives of millions of people. Today, it has been more than 8 years since I left my country, leaving everything behind. The decision was imminent. Either I would leave the country or I will leave for me and for my loved ones. It was in April 2014 that I left for Miami, Florida. At that time, I only had a few savings that I had been able to earn working in Venezuela as a dancer, choreographer, and artistic director. I worked with national artists and then with international recognized urban artists. This allowed me to earn money in US dollars. At that time, being able to earn in dollars in Venezuela was a blessing. Besides, I worked very hard. I felt very fortunate. I had been given the opportunity to work with Tito Bambino, Alexis Fido, Joel Errandi. They were very renowned artists, and more for the time, I was doing very well in Venezuela. I was rocking. But due to the situation, I had to make a decision. When I arrived in the United States, I only had money to process my third work visa and to temporarily rent a car so I could get around and work. I didn't have money to pay for a roof over my head. So I thought about living in the car for a while and showering in borrowed showers or public restrooms. I was ready to fight and overcome any obstacle, and so I did. Then angels appeared in my path and offered me a place to stay. Today I thank them so much for that. If you have migrated to any other country or city and alone, you can understand that migrating is hard. Immigrants don't have it very easy, especially if we come from a third world country and we have to start from scratch. Tell me, how many times have you had to start something from scratch? If it's happened to you, I know you understand me. Truly difficult things happen to us immigrants. We don't have enough money. Sometimes we are even treated as someone who has committed a crime without having committed it. We go through a lot of xenophobia, rejections, loneliness, humiliations. Sometimes even your own people push you around, and sometimes we have to give up little by little our costumes, our identity, our culture, to fit into society, to fit into that group of friends, in that group of work, in that culture. We silence uncomfortable situations so as not to lose an opportunity, and it's right there when we lose ourselves, and little by little we forget our values, our ideals. We forget who we really are. I entered to the country with a tourist visa, while my work visa was already in process. Documentations and visas are tedious and often costly procedures. I had the money in my hands. I only needed a local agency that was interested in representing me as a talent, so I could obtain the type of visa I wanted to apply for. I knocked on several doors. 3 opened to me. I chose one. I chose the one that could provide me with job opportunities in the field I wanted, dancing for artists. It was then when that talent agency wanted to be my agent, my sponsor. You may wonder, what is a sponsor? It's that company that is interested in your talent and can represent you and maybe offer you work. In this case, I was paying my visa, and LC Talent signed and became my sponsor. We signed a representation contract for the period of my visa, 3 years. I was happy because things were flowing very well, but I never imagined what this decision would cost me in the future. I did a lot of work for this agency, although it was not a requirement for this agency to employ me. I was very grateful. I also worked with many other agencies and artists because there was no type of exclusivity. That was the wonderful thing about this type of visa. My mission was to work hard. I have always been a hard worker. I thought that if I worked hard like I did in my country, I deserved to move to a place where I felt comfortable, at ease. Soon after, I got a nice apartment on the 29th floor of the Opera Tower in downtown Miami. An apartment with a beautiful view and a spacious balcony where my eyes witnessed the most incredible sunrise of my life. But its walls witnesses the most painful moments my heart has ever suffered. A sad news that I never thought I would hear arrived 3 months after migrating. On Sunday, June 22nd, 2014, at about 9 p.m., while I was in my apartment after working all day, I received a phone call from Venezuela that set my heart racing. Receiving a call from there at that hour on Sunday was not normal at all. I felt it. Something had happened. I answered the phone. It was my little brother, very upset. He was crying and shouting something I never wanted to hear. They killed Daddy. They killed Daddy. My world came to a standstill. I didn't want to believe him. My screams could possibly be heard through the entire building. They were screams of pain. I was in total denial. But it was true. There was my dad, lying on the ground in the middle of the street, lifeless, in front of the subway station I was at near the neighborhood where I grew up in a stage of my childhood. He was fleeing from a robbery. A motorcycle ran over him, causing him instant death. I felt that it was all a horrible nightmare. And when I was there next to him, he will come back to life. I didn't want to accept that horrible news. I was alone, seeing monsters on the walls of my apartment, screaming in despair. I avoided going out onto the balcony at all costs because what was going through my head was not pleasant at all. I wanted to wake up from that horrible nightmare, but it wasn't a dream. It was my new reality. 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 He was my mother and my father at the same time. He was much of who I am. He was pure talent, joy, charisma. He was a tremendous acting teacher, very passionate, with principles and values backed by a big heart. My dream was to get him out of the country and set up a food business for him. I remember that weeks before, I had mentioned to him that I was going to an audition to dance with Pitbull at Premios Juventud, a very recognized Latin awards show. I told him that I was very motivated because I had never danced in an internationally televised award show, let alone with Pitbull. He proudly told me, "Daughter, you are going to make it." That same night, I arrived at the airport with an empty backpack and my passport. I spent the night there. The next morning, I managed to get on the first flight to Venezuela. A painful procedure awaited me and the last goodbye to my dad. I clearly remember that day. At the funeral, the whole family was destroyed. My grandmother did not know who was inside the urn. She was very old, and the family decided not to tell her it was her son because something could happen to her. I think she sensed it. It was all very painful. That night, I slept in the funeral home next to the urn. I remember the most beautiful moments with my dad. I knew that my life would never be the same without his love. As the days passed, I realized that the audition was about to take place. So I decided to transform my pain into determination, and I returned to Miami. I know that is what he wanted. And you know what happened next? I got picked in the audition. I made it in his name. Since then, I have felt a pain that I had to learn to live with. A pain that brought a bitter taste to my immigration process. If you have lost a loved one, I know you understand me. I always ask him to guide me along the way. And what do you think? Little by little, doors began to open for me in the field of work I desired and even in acting. That was his dream. He always wanted to see me acting in a novela. And I did it. I did manage to act in two, but I didn't love it as much as dancing because the applause from the stage was a better antidote for my soul. Since his departure, all my faults have been held by him, and my accomplishments has been dedicated to him. Since then, he has been holding my hand in this story, the story of an immigrant. If you have gone through unfair, toxic, abusive, and painful circumstances, I would like to help you recognize, validate, and release those experiences and emotions that have been hidden within you. Let's take steps full of self-love, courage, and vulnerability because you deserve it. Go to the link in the description, maggalife.com/liberation. And get your masterclass and workbook. It's free. With love, Magdiel.